Hey, it's a book hound here. Today we're going to talk about Redemption by David Baldacci. This is the fifth in the Memory Man series of books by Baldacci. Baldacci is a man who needs no introduction. He's one of the best-selling authors in the entire world, and he has an incredible portfolio of work. And Memory Man is just one of several characters he's developed into series. If you're not familiar with Memory Man, it's about now he's like sort of an FBI agent. He's like a consultant to the FBI. He's a former homicide detective named Amos Decker who has kind of a double backstory. He was a big college football player. He played one game in the NFL where he got hit so hard, he got a brain injury that's given him this incredible savant capability. This is, I guess, an extremely rare thing, but it happened to him where, because of getting hit on the head, he now has a perfect memory. He remembers every single thing he sees and hears, which is, if you can imagine, sort of a blessing and a curse in life. It makes him good at being an investigator, but it's kind of a burden to have to remember everything. And he has this terrible tragedy in his past, which is that when he was working as a homicide investigator in Burlington, Ohio, his hometown, his wife and child were murdered by a crazy criminal he was investigating, and he is obviously, carrying around terrible grief and guilt about this murder, and he can't, he can't let it go. I mean, who would let it go? But it plagues him. So what you have in Decker, and I feel like the book is almost like secondary. You have to understand the character before you really get into the book here. And in my opinion, with all respect to Baldacci, who is an amazing writer, he has created a character who is kind of a drag. Decker is sad, he's obsessive, this brain injury, according to the way Baldacci has written him, has created some sort of like social sensitivity issues. Like, he's sort of clueless, he doesn't really know how to interact with people, he's emotionally kind of rigid. He's really not a very fun character to be around. He's kind of a miserable person. And I think it's an interesting issue as an author. I mean, maybe Baldacci feels differently about the character. I don't know, but it seems it's sort of not a fun character to hang around with. And the entire book is about him. And all these books are about him. So I don't know. I'm not sure what to think of that. But anyway, it's a good mystery. It starts with Decker back in Burlington, Ohio, where he's visiting the graves of his wife and daughter, and he's having this, moment with them in the cemetery, and he's approached by a man who he never thought he'd see again, a man named Merrill Hawkins, who is a murderer Decker sent away 13 years earlier for a quadruple homicide. And Hawkins is extremely ill and weak. He's been sent out of prison on compassionate release because he's dying of cancer. And he has somehow found his way to Decker in the cemetery to tell Decker that he's innocent. So Decker at first is like, I'm sorry that you're dying of cancer, but why would I believe you? I mean, of course you're going to say you're innocent. Everybody in jail says they're innocent. And then Hawkins disappears. But Decker is still prompted to he revisits this crime. Turns out it was the first homicide he ever investigated when he was new to homicide, and he goes to see his old partner, Mary Lancaster, who is still a homicide detective on the force here in Burlington, visits her, and she's another character who comes up a lot in the Memory Man series, and they have a friendship, very deep friendship. There's something wrong in her life that'll be revealed in the book. And they start to pry open this old case. And at first it seems like it was a huge slam dunk of a case. At the time, Hawkins' fingerprint was found at the crime scene. Hawkins' DNA was under the fingernails of one of the victims. It was like, of course it's him. Duh. What are we even talking about? But as they start to go over it again, and each of them now has 13 years more experience as investigators, and Decker's been with the FBI, and they start to see some little anomalies that they missed the first time around, and they start to wonder maybe we were wrong. And then Hawkins is murdered, and that really cracks this open. Like, wow, something's wrong here. So they start to dig into it, and sure enough, they start to find out things that make it look like really Hawkins didn't do it, or at least they're not sure anymore, and they can't. I mean, they can't explain the fingerprint and they can't explain the DNA, but they keep digging into it, and then they start talking to people, and people end up getting killed, and it's really clear that somebody doesn't want them to dig into this, and at the same time, Decker isn't part of the police force in Burlington anymore. This case is really none of his business at this point, and he's warned off, very aggressively warned off by this. His FBI bosses don't want him dealing with it, so he's going to go it alone. And this is sort of like where you get into the memory man character. Like, he's just obsessive and not a lot of fun, but he's going to get his man. And so, to be fair to Baldacci, he's an amazing writer, and it's an incredible mystery. So you're along for the ride, even if you find the character a little bit odd. And the book definitely delivers. Baldacci has a tendency to create elaborate plots, a very intricate, interconnected stories, and it delivers a lot of surprises. So overall, it's a satisfying read if you can deal with the character.